Per your request, I went back and watched, well, over 20 of Josh Jobe's games. And this is what I learned about the young man. What's up, Cerebral Football fans? My name is Steven Hyder. This is Gate City Sports Channel. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. Hey, we just crossed over 5,900 subscribers last week, guys. We're heading towards 10,000. If you're new to the channel and you enjoyed today's discussion, I would love to add you to the community. Just need you to subscribe to do that. To my OG subscribers, I'm going to ask you guys to keep hitting that like button, keep smashing the thumbs up button. Help me spike the algorithm and get this in front of new audience members that we could potentially convert into our little community here, guys. All right, y'all, today's topic. We're talking about Alabama cornerback Josh Jobe. And I got to be honest, this is the tale of two Jobes here, because the guy that I saw on film from 2020 compared to the guy that I saw on film in 2021, it was like watching two separate players play the game here. And I'll be honest, the games that stand out in my mind the clearest is if you go back, if you want to see the good, if you go back to the 2019 season and you watch that bowl game, the Citrus Bowl game against Michigan, he played really well in that game. That was a very, very, very good football game for Josh Jobe. And then in 2020, I would say if you go back and you watch the Florida game against Kyle Pitts and Grimes and those guys, he played really well in that Florida game. On the opposite ends of things, guys, just to talk about the two sides of Josh Jobe here, in 2021, it was pretty rough watching the Tennessee game and the Arkansas game. Those two games in particular, they worry me about his film because it ain't the same guy. I mean, it just feels like I'm looking at two completely different players from 2020 to 2021. But let's talk for just a split second about why that is. He was injured, guys. He had a lower body injury. I don't know the exact extent to the injury, but I know it prevented him from doing workouts, which really complicates a video like this, guys, because I can't really go over numbers with you. I know he's just short of 6 foot tall. He's like 5'11" and a half. Guys, I'm not going to play those kind of weird games. If he's over a half, I'm going to say he's 6 foot. He's 6 foot, about 185 to 190 pounds is about where he kind of comes in at. I think they officially weighed him in at 182, but I would suspect his playing weight will be up there a little bit. So, when I look at this, what does he bring that's a little different from the other corners that we've previewed on the channel, right? We got guys that we can't measure, we can't stack up Josh Jobe versus other dudes in terms of the lateral movement abilities, right? It's the 10-yard split, the 20-yard split. We don't know those numbers, okay? What I do know is that he's a different animal when you look at the range, the length of who this guy is. He's got over 32 and 5/8 inch arm reach, guys. I think it's 32.63 inches to be exact, which, look, we got guys out there that are not necessarily small in the limbs. They're not small, armed. We got guys like Tay Gowan, it's over 31 inches, right? I mean, Zach McPherson's over 30 inches. We have guys on the outside that have that requisite over 30-inch mark, but this is different. This is a guy that has tremendous reach for a corner. And you could see that play out on his film. Because one of the first things that I noticed from his film was watching him play against Kyle Pitts. I was like, who is this young man? Because there's some ability here. He's got length to really disrupt against dudes that are very tall and very athletically gifted. Let's be real. Kyle Pitts was pretty good last year for Atlanta. That's a 6'5", 6'6" tight end that's a converted wide receiver that has a very quick initial release off the line of scrimmage and has a lot of length to really go up there and take the snatch balls away from defensive backs. So Josh Jobe going out there and playing with that kind of physicality stood out to me. And he is physical, guys. To be quite clear, this young man has a lot of physicality. The one that stands out to me is go back and watch the Rose Bowl against Notre Dame from a couple of years ago. Watch the very first play of that game and watch him smack on that kickoff return, guys. I mean, he absolutely levels. I mean, the dude plays with a lot of physicality. And that kind of showed a lot in his 2020 film. I mean, it wasn't absent in 2021, but in 2020, you could see quite clearly that he really stood out. He started 11 out of 12 games. He led the team in pass breakups that year with 11. He was really, really fierce around the line of scrimmage, guys. He had 2.5 tackles for a loss. He had 2 sacks, and he had 2 forced fumbles on the year. He was very active around the line of scrimmage. That's why you get guys like, Lance Zierlein, other scouts that will look at a player like Josh Jobe and they'll immediately tell you, this is a dude that kind of fits in a cover 2 system, where you give him some safety help, allow him to use his length and his toughness around the line of scrimmage to come up and play. Mario Goodrich, while he's not built the same way, same kind of characteristics of being tough around the line of scrimmage. A guy that will come up and willingly risk his body for the team, if you will. So these guys have that requisite toughness to kind of play that shallow zone type system. But I think what stood out to me is go watch like I said, Tennessee and Arkansas were the games this past year where I went, okay, something, there's a difference with this young man. Something is not the same about him. And what stood out to me in particular was the Arkansas game was Treylon Burks got him a couple of times. One time everything was done right except for turning around and locating the football. Treylon Burks just climbed the ladder with the physicality and took it over him. And let's be real, that's Josh Jobe's calling is the physicality. And Treylon Burks took advantage of him there. And then there was a separate play I was watching in the Arkansas game where you will hear people talk about, he does lack kind of pattern recognition ability. They question his lower body, right, his hips and his pedal. And they say on top of the hips and the pedal, his ability to mirror and match receivers. There's also pattern recognition issues to where when he's in zone, he doesn't always have the best eyes for diagnosing route combinations and what's going on. And there's a really good example, Treylon Burks' touchdown in the Arkansas game to where, I think this is a tough one to judge the young man on because he's playing his quarter of the field, it looks like. It's either a quarters coverage concept or it's a cover two concept. And I think it's a really tough assignment because of the way the routes were run. They put a corner in conflict. You put two guys, you got one guy right on the cusp of his responsibility, and you got another guy sneaking outward, and he gets burnt there. So, biggest concerns here, right, is that whatever happened from 2020 to 2021, this was not the same guy physically. And I'll give you another example. He tries to press a young man in the Arkansas game, Thompson, the wide receiver there, number 84. Tries to give him a good jam at the line of scrimmage. And boy, he got beat off the release. And in 2021, in particular, he got beat off the release more than I expected to see. Because in 2020, that wasn't happening as much. And he was playing dudes like Kyle Pitts, who is also a phenomenal player, right? He's a freak. But you can see he's getting beat off the release here, and that's a touchdown. That's a problem, right? You can't, even in the pros, man, if you go for it, you better win. And I know that we can make the case that, yeah, this was all over, Diggs' film from Alabama, too. To where when he played those LSU guys in 2019, I believe, was the season, he went for a couple of jams, and he got beat. And it looked pretty bad on the film, but when he got to the NFL, it's still characteristic of him. He will get beat on plays, but the physicality shows up at times, too, and it's a positive. It's a net positive, if you will. I get it. Understand the argument completely, guys, but I got to tell you, if the lower body injury doesn't heal fast enough, right? Because I don't think he's unathletic. That's not what I'm seeing on the film. I'm seeing something that hampered his ability to show his complete athleticism in 2021. But if that doesn't go away, and he's still hampered by a lower body injury, and he's taking these kind of risks, he's taking these kind of gambles, he's not able to quite shoot his hips and play in the zone coverage the way we want, it's going to become a really long shot for him to make the roster. But I love what the Eagles did here. Do I think that it's worth the gamble? Yeah, because there's some underlying athleticism to Josh Jobe. This is a guy that, I thought Jalen Armour-Davis was clearly the better player overall, the better player. But in saying that, I thought Josh Jobe was being slept on during the 2022 NFL Draft. Ends up going undrafted as a result of that film being compounded by the injury and the lack of testing. Led him to being an undrafted player. And I think this was a draft in particular where you had a couple of corners like Mario Goodrich and Josh Jobe who, in other drafts with a healthier body of work to where maybe they don't miss out on drills, they don't opt out of running certain drills, maybe things would have been clearly draftable assets here. These guys would have been probably somewhere in day 3 picks. I had both of these dudes, I thought they were going to be day 3 picks because there were some guys like, I think Michael Wright out of Oregon got drafted. There's some dudes that got drafted I thought, you know what I'm saying? Like, I thought these guys were better. I thought Mario Goodrich and I thought Josh Jobe had better film than Michael Wright personally, but Wright has a lot of athleticism. He was able to do the testing to show the athleticism for teams to potentially take a gamble on him. I will say, just one last note before I jump off of here. He's part of what I'll call the dirty dozen of pass interference calls, okay? There's 12 players that I tracked over the 2022 NFL Draft at corner that I thought were quite susceptible to being called. For my email list, people, I'm going to send you that list. That's actually going to be this month's report. We're going to talk about all the stuff I've broken down from these defensive backs. I'm going to give you this dirty dozen list that I found during my breakdowns in April and March of of this year. So that'll all be coming out, guys. Hey, if you want to see any other ones, I've got Mario Goodrich's up here. I've got a bunch of people, guys. So check out the cornerback breakdowns. They're all there for you. This is Josh Jobe. This is what I saw, guys. This is the honest truth about it. I like Josh Jobe a lot, but I got to speak the truth to what the film showed, and from what I saw in 2020 to what I saw in 2021, it was like watching different guys. 2020's film was quite impressive. He's a very good special teams player. In 2019, he led the team in special teams production in Alabama. So this is a guy that, if healthy, if you're trying to find a guy that can make a contribution on your team in the back end of the roster, I get it. I get why some of you guys are very high on him. It makes sense to me that, hey, this dude is a physical corner. He's got great reach. Yes, the instincts seem to be questionable. We don't know. We don't know how much the injury plays into the instinct thing, but we'll see. It may not be instinct as much as it is just a lack of mobility due to a lower body injury. We'll see how it all plays out, guys. All right, y'all. I appreciate y'all so much, guys. I'll see you guys on the next video.